And we are live.
Hey.
Hello, world. I'm here with the amazing Gina Hatsis, who is also known as the Too Much Woman, which is amazing. I guess for your page, I'll share. My name is Marley Liss. And yeah, we're excited to just like hang out and talk about body love and sacred sensuality and things today. Maybe you want to do a more official introduction, Gina?
Hi everybody. Hi Facebook world or wherever this is posting. And Marley, thanks for having me. Official introduction. I always get stuck here because I know that people expect like the official bio, but I don't like fully identify. But what I will say is I'm a recovering journalist. I'm a 26-year speaker. I accidentally entered a speaking competition about 2.5 years ago, called The Too Much Woman. It was the first speech in 20 something years that I ever wrote just for myself. It wasn't for anyone else. And it went viral to 40 million, and it's changed the trajectory of my work. So that's my, I guess, on the professional side. But ultimately, that's not all of who I am. I am a truth seeker. I am a woman who intends to live as consciously as possible and to live in the place of truth for myself. That's my latest focus. Live in the place of truth for myself. So that's what I want to say. All that bio stuff is just in the past, but who I am right now is I'm a woman who really wants to embody my truth as much as possible.
Oh, beautiful. Yeah, I feel that as well. And Gina and I met at this beautiful event called Powerful Women Today, where she shared her speech. That was the speech that went viral, right?
Yeah, one of them. Yeah, I have two. That was the Too Much Woman sparked the movement.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I didn't know. What do you mean by you accidentally entered a speaking contest?
Yeah, so at the time, 2.5 years ago, I had been a speaker. I'm a public and corporate speaker. So I've been speaking for a long time on conscious communication and leadership and epic empowerment. So those are my things. And then in Toronto, there was a speaking competition called Speaker Slam. I had never heard of it before, but someone tagged me in a post and said, you should try this competition. And I was like, I've never been in a speaking competition. Why would I even do that? I have nothing. There's no reason. But something in me inspired me to just write one word. It was interested. And I don't even know why I said that. And within an hour, I had signed up for this competition. I didn't even know what it was. I thought it was like 30 people in a bar. And all I knew is there was a theme called Body Beautiful, and it was a maximum of 5 minutes. So I wrote a speech really quickly. It was like a really funny speech. It was called my Big Fat Greek Body. It was like a little comedy act. I put it away, and then 3 days before the actual event, I was sitting in my room, and I had what I can only describe as a hot flash. Like this wave came over me that said, you have actually something else to say. I was like, girl, you don't have time to rewrite the speech 3 days before the event. Like, this is ridiculous. But it was persistent, and I know myself, like when that little voice comes, not to ignore it. So I rewrote the speech, the Too Much Woman speech that actually went viral. It just kind of ran right through me very quickly. And I delivered the speech. And I say accidentally because I had no intention of being part of a public, speaking competition. I had no intention of it seeing the light of day. Like I said, I didn't even know it would go on to social media. I didn't know it would be picked up by, Ashton Kutcher and all these people. So I had no plan for it. It wasn't like a strategic business plan. Like I'm going to write a speech and it's going to go viral and it's going to start a movement. And so I say accidentally. Of course, it's never accidental, but it was unintentional, at least consciously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so amazing because like I really resonate with this thing of so much magic happening when we don't plan it. So much magic happening and around things that we weren't even considering pursuing. Like you weren't like, oh, I'm going to be a speaking contest participant, whatever. And I feel that so much with my life. Like just this state of surrender has taken me to different places. And now like my work is changing the justice system. And I so resonate with that moment you described of like, you just got the message that you were meant to like rewrite the speech.
Yeah.
And there's so many moments in my life like that too. And I remember I called it like I said that I got, I'm like, spirit got me pregnant with this idea.
Love it, love it. It does feel that way. It does feel that way because there's a gestation period, right? Like there's, and I love that you said that because I want to hop on this for one moment because a lot of people think it's about the day that I won the competition and the day that the speech was shared on social media or the day that it was picked up by Jay Shetty or Goldcaster. Like it was none of those things. It was the 26 years of speaking. In fact, I would even venture to say it was the 42 years of my life that brought me to that pregnant moment. That was the gestation. So I was like pregnant from the moment I was born, and everything was building to that moment, just like everything in your life is building to this moment and the next moment. And so there's this misconception that there are these like moments that we miss the boat or we better, jump on the boat. And I don't think it's any of those things. I think, I'm a 44-year overnight success. Like my whole life is bringing me to this next moment. And so when you talk about the surrender, and a lot of people talk about the surrender, it's a very important part of living an intentional life. So surrender can mean many things to different people. So I know a lot of people who call it surrender who just kind of float from thing to thing, and that's their surrender. I know some people who call surrender doing nothing. I know some people who call surrender just not paying attention and like abandoning how they feel because they just trust that, or maybe they don't even trust. They just think, what's the point? But for me, surrender is very intentional. Surrender is part and parcel of having a very clear intention for my life. And then I can surrender. And that's what allows the magic in. I think those two pieces go like tandem.
Yeah, I love that. It's like that balance of like creating and surrender. And also that's so what you were just sharing is so like that has been such a theme in the past few days. I've been talking a lot with clients around purpose. I do sacred sensuality coaching with women, and we've been talking about purpose. We were talking about this idea of like making it like your big break moment, and this thing we're taught of like that's still ahead of you. Like it's a future oriented thing of like one day you're going to have your big break, and that's when your purpose is going to explode. And that's when all the magic and abundance is going to come. And it's like, no, what you're sharing is so much more real, that it's this gradual, like lifelong process, and it's all part of it.
Yeah. Yeah. I really, because I that resonates so deeply with me because I was waiting for the breakthrough my whole life. It was like, where's the moment? And having been on the other side of the moment, what people have been calling my moment, I recognize that it's absolute bullshit because the moment is really just a series of events where we are connected to our intuition. And so if the moment for me was my video going viral, then everything that happens after that is like, what's the point? Like, what's my point now? Like, what's my direction? So, and that's why a lot of people crash and burn. Like they have like the success, or they meet the love of their life, or they have the thing. Liz Gilbert, I had the great privilege of sharing the stage with her last year. And when we were having a conversation, she talked about how after Eat, Pray, Love, it's like, it's so easy to just kind of go, well, now what? What's the point? Like nothing will ever be that. Like the big break the big break isn't like, oh, you hit that peak and then you sustain that for the rest of your life. It's a break because you fall. This is the life. Life is a heartbeat. Just think of literally on a monitor. It's the up and down rhythm. And so I just feel like it's so important to say there may be a point that feels like euphoric, but that's just like a surfer riding the wave. Like you will go back down again, and resisting that or thinking that that's not going to happen is going to fuck you up. Like it will fuck with your mind. That's why so many Hollywood actors and actresses have that crash, because that can't be sustained. And so starting to look at my life in a different way now. I don't look at it as I'm on a high or I'm on a low, or I just look at it as all purposeful. Like I am the wave, and not to be super, abstract about it, but even now during this pandemic, if we can really just ground this conversation and what's going on with this pandemic, you and I had a really brief conversation before this. And it's like, the first 2 weeks, I was just like really down here in my feelings and just like acclimatizing to what was going on. And then I have moments, days where I'm on the crest of the wave, and moments where I feel like I'm in the undertow. And neither is good and neither is bad, neither is right, neither is wrong. I don't want to be on the crest the whole time. I require the undercurrent to pull me back up. Like they require one another. So gosh, in a day, I'm like a scribble. I'm like over here feeling fantastic, having a conversation with you. And then maybe in an hour, I'm like, what the fuck? Like my whole life's been turned up, like, so the idea of arrival is actually frightening to me. It's repellent to me, the idea of the big breakthrough, because or the big break, because it suggests that you get that and then that's the answer. And boy, are you in for a shocking surprise. I mean, I and not to, sorry, I know I'm rambling, but this is such a near and dear piece to me, because at the height of my big break, I'm touring the globe. I'm like, what bigger dream does a speaker have but to have like a breakthrough like that, to start a movement and tour the world? And what I know is every day when I'm in my hotel room, no matter where I am in the world, and I put my head down on my pillow at night, recognizing that there's a very human experience in that realizes that all of this surface stuff that I should feel really good about is not the truth of who I am. When I put my head on my pillow at night, that's the truth of who I am. And so hope I'm not being too abstract, but we can get really caught up in the big break.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. And like, please feel free to get as abstract as you want.
Okay.
It's all perfect. Yeah, I resonate with that so much. And like, it makes me think of performance pressure as well. And what I'm hearing, what you're saying too, is like such beautiful cyclical living, like this really beautiful. And that's like, because so much of your work and my work as well is around, I believe, like women's bodies.
Yeah.
And our patriarchal society is so linear with everything that we forget that things can be like that.
Well, look at just social media. Like, I know you're very active on Instagram as well. So on social media, Facebook, we see like Transformation Thursdays or Tuesdays or whatever, and you see like before and after pictures, and the idea that there's like this linear place, or like X marks the spot, like I want to get there, can really fuck with us, because there is no there. And again, it's very an abstract thought, but the truth is that if all I'm doing is aiming for there, I will never be happy here. And when you get there, and I think the reason I've had the we'll call it the success or the visibility or the experience that I've had, is so that from the other side, I can look back and I can say, hey, this is actually my second viral video was about this. It was like, hey, I'm on the other side of there, and there's no difference. Like all the shit that you were feeling before still comes up, because the spiritual journey is cyclical. You just revisit things, but at a deeper conscious level, because of the journey that you've been on. So if we think our relationship, let's talk about body, because you raised it. If we think about the relationship of with our body as a finite thing, like I'm going to love and accept this body, and to believe that once that switch is flipped, that we've arrived, you're in for a shocking revelation, because it's a daily revisiting. Like it's a daily, oh my God, it's a daily commitment. It's a daily practice. And I think we get that intellectually, but we forget, because that's the cause of our misery. Misery and suffering is wanting to be there when we're here. It's wanting to be anywhere else than where we're at. So we will continue to be miserable if what we want is that thing, that X marks the spot.
Oh, thank you. Yes. I don't know if you know, I used to work for the National Eating Disorder Info Center, and then my work kind of shifted into sexuality and like shifting the justice system around sexuality, sexual violence. And the common theme I'm seeing everywhere is exactly what you're saying. Like any once plus then formula is a trap. Like once I'm this weight, then I'll be worthy of love. Or for me, it was like, really, for me, a lot of the time it comes back to impact. And it's like, once I change the justice system,
Yeah.
which happened, then I'll be significant. And that wasn't my whole motive, but I think it was a subtle programming in the background of my mind. And you're so right. Like, it's none of those external things are going to shift the way we feel within when we put our head down on the pillow. And it's like, that's so, so, so important. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. Yeah, I'd love to tie that into like body love more, and just, I guess, like something we were talking about before was how body love and sacred sensuality come together. Because I think a lot of people will hear those two topics and they'll think of them as completely separate. But then it's like, how did they come together? And yeah.
Yeah, that's a big one. So I will say I was very private about my relationship with my body for my whole life. It was because of the work that I do, which is about epic empowerment and confidence and embodying that. I didn't want to show the part of myself that felt not powerful. So I never talked about, I talked about it maybe jokingly, but I never really talked about my relationship with my body. And it wasn't until I wrote the speech, and then I had to show up in my, what I call my too much body. And I went through this process of recognizing that my relationship with my body and my resistance to it was impacting not just my relationship to my sensuality or sexuality, but all things. And that was a huge aha moment for me, because doing the work that I do, I was like, okay, I'm going to examine my relationship with money, my relationship with my spiritual self, my relationship with relationships, my relationship with all of these areas, like a pinwheel. I'm going to go through everything. But the one area that I never considered spiritual or part of my spiritual journey was looking at my relationship with my sexuality. I didn't see it as part and parcel. I thought it was just this other thing. So as I was starting to look at my relationship with my body, because I was thrown into it because of my speech going viral, I had no choice but to confront it. All this stuff started to come up about my sensuality and sexuality, and particularly pieces around how does a woman who is a mother, who's in her 40s, show up. And I said truth, at the beginning of this, like truth in the truth of me, um, based on all these belief systems, limiting belief systems that I had around what's acceptable and what's not. So what I'm trying to say is there's a place, it's kind of like a bumper car. I kept bumping up against my sensuality and what that was and what that meant for me, as I was coming to love and accept my body, as I was putting intention around that. And for a lot of women, I think this is true, because what they've reflected to me is that for those of us who have any kind of limiting belief around sexuality, that it's shameful, that it's wrong, that it's dirty, that it's dangerous, if we've experienced any kind of abuse, and the Me Too movement have exposed all of us to at least confronting for ourselves how true that is, even if it's the slightest catcall on the street, or if we have some wound around that, it's going to be very hard to love and accept your body, because we're going to rub up always against our belief system around our sensuality and our sexuality. And unless we're willing to go there, it's going to be really hard. I would venture to say impossible to accept our body.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I love that like pinwheel visual. And I think it is all so connected. And like when we heal one of those like categories or whatever, like the rest are going to benefit from that so much. Yeah. And it's so interesting. Like when I look back, I guess my journey was the same, like body love, and then it shifted into sexuality and healing. And it's like, of course, that's so present. I was talking about this yesterday with my roommate, like just how much the media messes us up with those once plus then traps.
Yeah.
Traps of like, you need this in order to feel like this, and then we think that something's wrong with us as individuals when we have these like insecurities, or we're being intimate with someone and we can't turn our brain or self-consciousness off, and we're like, what's wrong with me? But that's such bullshit, because it's like we have been taught again and again and again to take in these messages,
Yeah.
these judgments.
What I really want to say about this, because you're absolutely right, is that yes, the media has done us a disservice. I worked as a journalist, and
Mm,
I know firsthand that the truth that the media paints is fabricated. I know how the Kool-Aid is made.
mm,
But I will say this is, and that's very disempowering, because we're like, oh, the media is everywhere. What are we going to do? Like, I have two teenagers, so I'm just like, they're fucked, because I can't, hide them from all this. But then what I really got clear about is that it doesn't begin there. It begins with the individual, and it begins in the home, and our parents who love and adore us, and our family who loves and adores us. It begins with them. The if then, it's like, if you do well in school, then you'll get a job, and if you get a
mm,
good job, then you'll make the money, and if you then make the money, then you'll find the life, and if you get the life, then you'll be happy. I mean, it's pervasive. And so why I get excited about that is that I recognize is that each one of us all the time are walking models of possibility for one another. I
mm,
see a friend of mine who um, is embodying um, being okay with her size, and um, and embodying the now then. And that creates a little space in my head where I go, okay, maybe I can lean into that. that's
mm,
why that's why I live such an exaggerated life. It's not easy um, to live, like I call it, like the scribble, like scribbling outside the lines. And so I live in perpetual discomfort, sharing and exposing myself, as I'm sure many of us do. I won't assume that you do, but many people do, who dare to even talk about these topics. But whenever anyone is willing to go outside of the line of normal, it's a place of discomfort, because we will be rejected, we will be criticized, we will be challenged. But I choose to live in that space, because what I know for sure is that those of us who choose to live in that, this is how things change. People are watching, they're absorbing, um, they're seeing a new way of being. And even if it's by osmosis, that's how we change things. We don't change things by jumping into the media and saying, let's not talk about, body. And I mean, it has to change with the individual.
mm,
The work you're doing, the work that all of us are doing, when we can show up most present, and demonstrate to one another. Like, let me just say this. Here's a case in point.
mm,
I think one of my highest purposes is to show what it looks like to enjoy my body, to enjoy my life, and to communicate that that's a good thing.
mm,
Like, it's as simple as that. Like, we're taught that we're supposed to hate our bodies, and that that's an acceptable, like, we commiserate, like women, like, oh, my ass, my thighs, like, it's become almost like the acceptable thing to do.
mm,
um, so my highest purpose is to show that life is supposed to be joyful. Even during a pandemic, you see me dancing, you dancing, and me being pleasure focused, when
mm.
a lot of people are like, how can you, people are suffering, how can you be celebrating and dancing? And you know um that is the point. That's
Yeah.
the freaking point.
I love that so much. And thank you for saying that, because that's really like, I'm like, that was my intention of this video and all the videos I do, is to allow people to witness what is possible in the realm of embodiment, and to just say, hey, look, here's a woman who's loving her body. Here are two women who are loving their bodies and enjoying pleasure, and like not denying the hard stuff, not denying
Yeah,
this, but embracing the pleasure that's there as well, always. And I so agree with you. Like, when one woman reclaims her magic and walks it, it's like
yeah,
a permission giver, like for everyone.
yeah, absolutely. And sometimes I will say that sometimes I remember hearing love your body. I remember that language being one of my affirmations, like, I love and accept my body. And I remember for the longest time, I couldn't even that couldn't even land with me. It was like language that I knew was important, but I couldn't resonate with it because I couldn't go from loathing my body to loving my body. It was like, I got so angry, like, fuck you. Like, I can't, like, it just, my whole body was so resistant to the idea of loving it because I'd spent my whole life not loving it and not being okay with loving it. And so the idea now of, you know, doing belly dancing, for example, is something that I've been reconnected with. And it really does bring a woman back into her body and it feels really good. But then to record it and then to post it, like, um, there's such an, it's like, there's a rub there. There's a rub there. It's like, how dare you? It's one thing to say you, like, I won't say that I absolutely, when I look at my body as a macrocosm, I don't look and say, oh my God, I love these thighs. I love this cellulite. I don't do that. But I don't, the goal is not loving my body really anymore. The goal is feeling good. So I can do that.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, I just, for anyone listening, sometimes you think loving, I love my body, love your body, love your, well, fuck, that's so hard. I've been hating it I don't know how to flip that switch. So
Mm-hmm.
look for ways to just enjoy it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's so beautiful. And that comes full circle to the like once plus then, or this like big break conversation of
Yeah.
thinking like, oh my God, one day I'm gonna love my body and it's gonna be this big shift and it's gonna be like, whoa.
Yeah.
And same thing, like it's usually not. It's usually gradual. It's usually
Yeah.
about moment to moment feeling. Like, yeah, for me, loving my body is about loving how I feel in my body.
Mm.
And
Mm-hmm.
like, I
There's a
feel
big difference.
safe. Like I feel safe in my body right now. That's
Wow.
like a lot to love. That's a lot, you know what I mean? I love that I feel safe in my body. So that's like what body love means to me and feels like to me. Yeah, I think that's so important to say. And that's usually like people who have healed from really extreme eating disorders and like any of us who have journeyed through body image, body shame and all these things, like it is so gradual. Like I thought I used to have such a detrimental relationship to food. And I think you said in your video that you were raised in dance. And I grew up in competitive dance. And there
Yep.
was so much like it was so paradoxical because it's like I never felt better in my body. Like I loved moving and I felt so connected to myself. And at the same time, there was so much messaging around like how you
Mm-hmm.
look, performance, being in front of the mirror, comparing yourself to others.
Yeah.
And yeah, these like aesthetic sports. And yeah, it feels so gradual, the shift to the point where I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm not consumed with body shame and like obsessing over what I eat anymore. Like, oh wow, when did
Totally.
that shift? And
Yeah.
you're right, it is cyclical too.
Yeah. And I think too, I will add to that only that I think it's so important for me to say this, that I'm the heaviest I've ever been. And I am in the place of most acceptance than I've ever been. And how do those two opposite worlds meet? I mean, like, how is that possible? And it's because every day I create a ritual of feeling good in my body. So I'm literally sending neurotransmitter like messages to my brain that this body feels good. Now for me that's through movement, because I also, you know, dancing, I think moving your body is one of the greatest ways, but you can do it through lots of things, through breath work, through um, maybe writing a story about your body, whatever it is. But I create a ritual every day of feeling good in my body so that I'm healing the relationship with it subconsciously. And that's very different being at the heaviest weight I've ever been than being really, really thin. I mean, I talk to a lot of people, and I know a lot of people who've had like these huge weight loss transformations. And the people who keep it off or who are actually feel healthy in their new body will tell you that it's way less about the actual weight loss, and it's about the journey of acceptance back to themselves. Because I know a lot of people who've lost a lot of weight that still have a lot of toxic relationship with their body,
Oh yeah.
and still look at it and hate it and loathe it. And so we
Mhm.
know that it's way more than the here then. We know this intuitively. And so it's all about, what are the practices, what are the rituals to come back to. I call it finding your spiritual G spot. That's the name of my podcast, because that's what it is for me. The spiritual G spot, the spiritual coming back to that place of pleasure and connection with myself. That is the sweet spot.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I love that so much. That's such a juicy creation. And like, yeah, for me, the sacred sexuality work is like everything. I think just in a million ways, whether, I don't know, through so many different sources, we're taught to separate like the physical from the sacred, especially with spirituality. It's like, oh, the magic is up in the sky, like up in the clouds, and we're definitely not taught that our bodies are like just as sacred as the stars, right?
Oh,
And so this work of like remembering sexuality, sensuality in our bodies as sacred is so beautiful. Like
yeah.
it's kind of everything.
Yeah, and I will say that I'm still very much on the journey. I want to pin that, like, when you're done, you're dead. I feel so. It's important for me to say that the connection to my sensuality, my sexuality, I use those. They're very different to me, but they connect to one another. But sensuality for me began with just being aware of my senses, being okay with feeling my body. So many of us, particularly those of us who've experienced any kind of trauma, as I said, we disconnect from feeling our body. So it's like the neck up experience of life. Everything's heady instead of the neck down experience of life. And so that's where, dancing, even just, I remember going to a retreat years ago when I started this process, a retreat of just having someone run a feather up my arm when I was blindfolded. Like that was, I cried the whole time.
Yeah.
Then it moved into having someone feed me, the receiving and just allowing, and that was sensual enough for me, is what I'm trying to say. Like, forget leaping to sexuality. I was just like, will I allow that feeling?
Yeah.
I blogged about having massage. This was a couple months ago. And that's why I say I'm on the journey. Like, this is just a couple months ago. I went for a massage and there was some screw up, and the only person available was a man. And I'd never had a man massage me, but I thought, oh, I'm okay with this as long as it's from the waist up. Don't. And then as the words came out of my mouth, I said, could you just focus on the top half? I thought, what the fuck is that about? So I said, actually, you know what? I changed my mind, and no man gets to see my legs. Like, they're just. I've said I'm still healing that, and I allowed myself to have a full body massage, and I cried the entire time, sobbing. He didn't say a word, just held the space, and I blogged about that being such. I'm so used to my head up, or in this case, waist up feeling. Okay, waist up, I'm okay with, but not anywhere down there. And so I just want to mark for anyone who's listening is, again, it's not the arrival there. It's this beautiful, and how about we frame it as exciting unfolding, and get excited about the actual process of it, and be curious about it. And for me, the sensuality is literally tapping into my senses. So if you're watching this and you're thinking, oh God, the sexuality is too far for me. And I know, because 1 in 3 women reportedly have some history of sexual abuse. That might be too far for most of the people watching. Just coming into connection with your sensuality, which means connecting to the sensory experience, your senses.
Yeah.
Um, and a quick little activity or exercise that I've been sharing a lot recently, because it really helped me. I'll just throw this really quickly, Marley. I know you're not asking me to, but to put a little timer on your phone for like the next couple of days, random times, like 4 or 5 random times, 12:03, 1:08. And when the little alarm goes off on your phone, just ask yourself, and better yet, get a little journal and just mark how you're feeling. Just ask yourself, what am I feeling right now? So maybe it's an emotion. Maybe you can actually identify. I'm feeling sad, anxious, happy, relaxed, peaceful, tired, hungry. And if you can't connect to the language of it, just connect to your sensation. What's my body feeling? I'm feeling tight. I'm feeling um, relaxed, I'm feeling juicy, whatever it is, and mark it down and just start to create a little ritual of checking in, checking in, checking in, so that you start to have a somatic, visceral connection. Um, and then it starts to become a habit. It's like a muscle, we flex it, right? As opposed to having a neck up experience. So many of us right now are having a neck up experience. Like, what does this mean? What's the pandemic mean? How am I going to make money? When can I see my family?
Mm.
Rather than just the somatic, like connecting to the body. So that might be a good place to start if your
Mm.
viewers are looking for a place to start.
Yeah, thank you. I love that. And thank you for distinguishing too between like sensuality and sexuality. I definitely see it. I see sensuality as this like vast umbrella, and then sexuality to me is like a part of it.
Mm.
And yeah, that journey's been really big for me. And I actually discovered like the first time I heard the word sacred sexuality was like a few months after experiencing sexual assault. And I remember for me, that was a huge moment. Like I broke down crying and I was like, I did not know those words could go together. I did not know those words. And same goes for sacred sensuality or, sacred physicality, whatever you want to call it, whatever language resonates. Just remembering that those things can go together. And I love what you shared about that somatic connection because yeah, so many of us are dissociated a lot of the time. And I think there's a lot of fear of what we're going to find in our bodies when we come into that embodied presence. And I think it's important to acknowledge, like, yes, there might be a lot of grief and memories and things like that. And there's also going to be pleasure.
Mm.
There's also going to be pleasure. So I think that's really important to remember as well.
Yeah, yeah, and that it's okay to feel pleasure and to make that an important part of your day and your life and your experience. And
Yeah.
as basic as that sounds, I found that over the past 2 years on my tour, that seems to be the common theme. It's like we save pleasure for like the Saturday, or we save pleasure for, that week in May that we're going to go to Hawaii, or we
Right.
save pleasure for like, and it's always, especially as women, we are conditioned to be more aware of other people's pleasure and being the nurturer and provider and creator of that
Mhm.
we take our pleasure and it gets the bottom rung. And so how can we possibly come to a sacred place with our bodies and our sexuality if pleasure doesn't become the priority? I will say this: yesterday I had an interview with intimacy coach, a world-renowned intimacy coach, Ken Blackman, and he said, he was talking to the men. It's really interesting. He was talking to the men in the audience, and he said, for a woman, just sexually, we have so much stigma around wanting to please the man. And although I'm talking about in the bedroom, this really relates to everything. This is like the microcosm of life, right? So
Mhm.
in the bedroom, we're so focused on pleasuring the man and making sure he's having a good experience. And even just think about porn, like the woman is like, it's like she's giving him feedback that like she's loving it so that he loves it. Um,
Mhm.
Whereas what the game changer in relationship is when a woman prioritizes her pleasure and actually makes sure that she's enjoying herself. And not only is that better for her, of course, but that's better for him. And so I love that reference, because to use it as a template for our lives and
Mhm.
to say, what would happen? What would be different if everyone watching this were to prioritize pleasure? Like, it goes against everything people tell us. But what if a mother were to wake up in the morning and before she makes breakfast or serves or gets on that call or does whatever, before a woman, checks to see if everyone else is okay, if she prioritizes her pleasure, does something for herself, and then serves from that full cup, serves from the overflow. I mean, how different would things look? Because we know that a woman who is nourished and full, the first thing she wants to do is to share it, is to give it.
Mhm.
And it's just such a beautiful common theme that I see. So, and I know that is what you represent in your work and how you show up. is making pleasure a priority for yourself. So I thank you for being that model for all of us.
Thank you too. It's huge. It's like huge. It's a revolution, and it's a revolution that feels good. It's a
Yeah. And we're
juicy.
so afraid of feeling good. Like we have,
Yeah.
think of the language, guilty pleasure. Like it's in our lexicon. It's like,
Yeah.
you feel bad for feeling good. Like how fucked is that? Like we
Yeah.
can't even enjoy the ice cream because it's like, oh, I was so bad. Girl, I was so bad. Oh my gosh. Like let's revel in the joy, whatever it is, and make
Mhm.
it okay. Make it okay.
I love that you gave that like mother example too, and you touched like that interview that you had, where they were saying like a woman prioritizing her pleasure will enhance pleasure for him as well.
For everyone.
That's so real. Like that comes back to what we were saying about embodiment. And like imagine we were all raised with mamas who loved themselves, who loved their bodies so much,
Yeah.
and just like seeing them look in the mirror and be like, "Oh, I'm feeling myself today." Like, how
Yeah.
would that
Yeah.
shift the way
A
we?
lot of people, there's a lot of I mean, people who love me think they're protecting me, and they say, you know, your daughter's 13 and your son's 15, and they're watching you on Instagram. They're watching what you post. They're watching. I'm like,
Good.
good. And I want them to, and you know, even touring, people are like, how are you touring so much? You have 2 kids. Like, how are you? How dare you? And I say, I want them to see what a fulfilled woman looks like, a happy woman. I come home happy, and I come home and I'm able to give and serve and love them from that place. And I want them to see that possibility for themselves. Servitude teaches them nothing but to feel guilty for pleasure. And I have to consciously do it because all the old stuff still comes up, like how dare you? But I know in my heart of hearts, what I know to be true is that they're watching me, and they're watching what a woman looks like when she is taking care of herself and she is happy, how it really serves everyone. It really does serve everyone. So if that's your goal, that's the shortest way to not serve from a cup of resentment or need or acceptance or trying to do anything, but to start from a place of how can I fill myself up and love from that place, or create from that place, or just show up from that place. Pretty
Yeah.
powerful shit, you know?
Well, it is. It is, especially when we think of all these like self-love or self-care as selfish kind of narratives. And then we
Yeah.
think of this like very opposite reality that we're both talking about and that we're both living of like when you fill your own cup so much, it becomes love in overflow, it becomes inspiration and pleasure in overflow. And then other people get to enjoy that as well. They're like, wow, this cup is so full, you know?
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
why a woman who is, I call it being turned on, you know, like, and it's really nothing to do with, not that it's nothing, but it's only a small piece of sexuality, but turned on for me is a woman who is lit within, like she's lit inside, and we become a magnet, right? It magnetizes. You want to be around someone who's lit, right? Um,
Yeah.
and so it's a service. You know, when people say, oh gosh, she's so full of herself, well, who the hell else am I going to be full of? Yeah, I'm full of self. I mean, imagine that being a bad thing, being full
Yeah.
self. Like, yes,
Mm,
thank you, I'll take that.
I love
I'll
that
take
so much. Yes, such a good reframe, such a needed reframe. Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh. What time did we start this? 1:30?
Yeah, we can, yeah,
Time is
thrive.
flying. What is time?
Right.
Oh, I love it. Gina, how can people like keep connecting with you? How can they see your epic speech and learn about your work?
So you can Google Too Much Woman or Gina, Too Much Woman. My last name's Hatsis, Hatzis. I'm everywhere. I'm most present on Facebook and now Instagram. I'm trying. And I have a YouTube channel where I've got the speech there. It's pretty much everywhere. But yeah, come connect with me. Would love to get your feedback.
Mhm. Yeah, beautiful. Spiritual G spot. I love that so much.
That's it. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for this time. I appreciate you.
Yeah, for sure. I'd love to share with people as well that I actually just launched today a 3-part masterclass on sacred sensuality and some of the things we talked about here. So I love how many resources are available to us right now online.
Especially now. It's amazing. Yeah.
It's really, really, really good.
Amazing. Thank you for the
Yeah.
work that you do. So important.
Thank you, love. And thank you for embodying so much truth and juiciness and epicness for your children, for all of us.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.